Hey guys, it's Pyro Killer here, and today I'm going to show you how to use Reinhardt effectively in your Overwatch matches. Now let's get right into this guide by starting to talk about Reinhardt's strengths. Reinhardt's strengths are having a high HP and having a barrier which allows him to block 2000 damage from the enemy team. This makes him a great team player because anyone who's behind his barrier is protected. His barrier regenerates anytime it is not in use. Also, Reinhardt can be a great addition on your team if you're attacking or defending. Now let's move on to Reinhardt's weaknesses. Reinhardt's weaknesses are having a slow movement speed. Most tanks move slower than other heroes in Overwatch. Also, Reinhardt has a melee weapon, which means he can only use his weapon in close quarters. Now, let's get into Reinhardt's abilities, starting with his Fire Strike. Reinhardt's Fire Strike allows him to shoot a projectile out of his hammer. It does 100 damage on contact with the other player, and it has a cooldown of 6 seconds. Now, let's move on to Reinhardt's next ability, which is his Charge. Reinhardt's Charge allows him to move faster with less control. If you manage to hit an opponent with your Charge and bring him to a wall, it will do 300 damage. If you manage to bump your opponent and not end up hitting him at a wall, it will do 50 damage. And Reinhardt's Charge has a cooldown of 10 seconds. Now, let's move on to Reinhardt's final ability, which is his Barrier Field. When deployed, Reinhardt moves at a speed of 2.75 meters per second. That is a slower movement speed than what Reinhardt moves when his Barrier Field is not deployed. Reinhardt's Barrier Field is 2000 health and can be regenerated when it is not in use. Reinhardt's Barrier Field regenerates at a rate of 195 per second after being down for 2 seconds. When Reinhardt's Barrier Field breaks, it has a cooldown of 5 seconds. When that cooldown is up, his Barrier Field comes back with a health of 585. If anyone is behind Reinhardt's Barrier Field, they will not take damage, because all the damage that is being done is being absorbed in Reinhardt's Barrier Field. The same goes for Reinhardt himself, unless you get hit from behind, the air, or either of the sides, if Reinhardt can't reposition his shield fast enough. Now let's move on to Reinhardt's main weapon, which is his Rocket Hammer. Reinhardt's Rocket Hammer does 75 damage and has a 5-meter range. Since Reinhardt has a melee weapon, that means he can only use his weapon in close quarters. This does not benefit Reinhardt, because anyone who is shooting at him from a range, when his shield is broken, will pretty much always kill him. However, that is the complete opposite if the opponent is in the 5-meter range of Reinhardt's Rocket Hammer. Reinhardt will destroy anyone who is in the range of his Rocket Hammer. Since he is melee, he's meant to kill people up close and personal. One thing I recommend is to shut down Genji ults. When there's a Genji ulting and he's close to you, put down your Barrier Field and get ready to swing. Since Reinhardt does 75 damage with one hit of his Rocket Hammer, this will make it really easy for Reinhardt to easily shut down a Genji, even when he is ulting. Now, let's move on to Reinhardt's ultimate, which is his Earth Shatter. Upon activation, Reinhardt will smash his Rocket Hammer into the ground, and anyone who is in the 20-meter area of his ultimate will be knocked out for 2.5 seconds. Also, the ultimate does 50 damage. One thing I recommend is to use Reinhardt's ultimate in conjunction with a Fire Strike and a Charge, so you can actually get a kill. Or, you can use Reinhardt's ultimate in conjunction with a Charge and then a hit at the end with his Rocket Hammer. This will also get you a kill. Another thing I recommend for you to do with Reinhardt's ultimate is use it when the enemy team is all bunched up. This allows you and your team to go in and kill the enemy team while they're confused for 2.5 seconds. This allows you to get your maximum usage out of your ultimate. Now let's move on to some strategies, tips, good, even, and bad matchups for Reinhardt. Now, let's move on to some strategies to help you play better as Reinhardt. Reinhardt should mostly be used defensively, but a little bit offensively is fine too. I think 70% of the time you should be defensive, and the other 30% you should be offensive. I recommend to always stay with your team, so you and your team can be shielded, and you can push up and take objectives easier without taking damage. Now, let's move on to some tips for Reinhardt. One quick tip is to take down Reinhardt's barrier field when you don't need to use it. This allows you to regenerate Reinhardt's barrier field and absorb more damage when you actually need to use it, allowing you to survive longer. Another tip for Reinhardt is to use your Fire Strike as much as possible. Your Fire Strike is on a 6-second cooldown, and that's your only projectile you can use as Reinhardt, so use it to your advantage. Try to use your Fire Strike every 6 seconds. Use it as much as possible. Another tip for Reinhardt is to be accurate with your Fire Strikes. Since it's your only projectile, you have to be accurate to deliver the most damage possible. If you do not have the greatest aim with your Fire Strike, I recommend going to custom games and putting the settings on to no cooldowns and making the other team all Annas. And putting headshots only. Since Anna cannot get headshots, she will not be able to kill you, and you can keep firing your Fire Strike, so you can get enhanced aim. This also works if you do this in the training arena with trainer bots, but it is not as effective as doing it in custom games with Annas. Another tip for Reinhardt is to be accurate with your charge. Your charge does 300 damage if you hit someone against the wall. That easily kills or eliminates most of the enemy's health. If you want to get better at pinning people, do the same thing I said to do to increase your aim with your Fire Strike. Another tip is not to overextend. No one likes an overextending Reinhardt, and they usually always end up dying. As Reinhardt, your job is to protect your team, not going in enemy lines trying to kill the other team. The last tip for Reinhardt is to only use your barrier field when you need to. So if no one's shooting at your barrier field, don't deploy it. All it will do is make you move slower, and there's no point in moving slower. Now, let's move on to some good, even, and bad matchups for Reinhardt. Let's start with the good matchups for Reinhardt. The good matchups, in my opinion, for Reinhardt are Mercy, Zenyatta, Lucio, Soldier 76, McCree, Winston, and Ana. Now, let's move on to some even matchups for Reinhardt. The even matchups, in my opinion, for Reinhardt are Zarya, opposing Reinhardt's Mei, Hanzo, Tracer, Torbjorn, Reaper, Diva, Widowmaker, and Orisa. Now, let's move on to some bad matchups for Reinhardt. The bad matchups, in my opinion, for Reinhardt are Pharah, Bastion, Junkrat, Genji, Roadhog, Symmetra, and Sombra. So yeah guys, that's the video. That's pretty much all I have for you guys on Reinhardt. Don't forget to check out our clan Pyro. All the links to their YouTube channels will be in the description below. Also, don't forget to check out my friends' channels. Their links to their channels will be in the description below. And make sure you don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me what informational video, guide video, top 10s video, and tips and tricks video you'd like to see on my channel next. Anyways guys, that was the video. Hope you guys have enjoyed. This is Pyro Killer, signing off. Peace out guys.